So, got a Volkswagen today. I have a strange obsession with these cars. It's just very bittersweet. I don't like them. I don't like them at all. They're just stupid. I don't like the engineering. I'm not going to vent though. What's happening with this car is got a P0106, and it's related to the map sensor. I'm gonna talk very briefly because I don't know how loud this car is. It's showing up on this camera here, but the intake manifold pressure is what I'm replacing. Currently, there's no discrepancies as far as how it's idling because this code is an intermittent fault. What normally happen with these with the 2.5 engines, from what I understand, is it could have a possible accumulation of oil on the sensor, which could alter the readings. So based on how the sensor's positioned, oil will collect and it wouldn't have an accurate reading. But just for like a really simple test, the map sensor seems to be pulling vacuum, and this is just an interpretation. I know it says PSI, but this is like atmospheric PSI. So normal atmosphere is 14 PSI, like as we are. Anything above that is going to be considered, like boost pressure. Let's just say it's going to be it's going to be pressurized. But being that this is just an interpretation, and even though it says PSI, it's kind of like right in a way. But I guess from atmospheric standpoint, when it goes into vacuum, it can be measured from that 14 PSI and below, like inch grams or something. I'm pretty sure if I go into like another setting, it'll come up, but I'm not that intelligent. So why am I trying to zoom in on this? So this is normal readings right now. I probably could do some like snap throttles, see what happened. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Just compare after the fact. Let's go in the car. So in the car, there's 174,000 miles on this car at the moment. But let's just do a couple snap throttles. But let me cut it off for a second. I'm going to show you. It's going to go. A normal sensor will go up to 14 psi. When the vehicle's off, key on, it should go up. There we go. So that's normal atmospheric pressure there, and it's going to go into a vacuum state. That's the sensor maxed out at 14.3. And I'm just going to do a couple snap throttle and see how it responds. See me pulling down fine. And I'm pretty sure if I put an oscilloscope to it and go more in depth, we could definitely see some discrepancies with this in comparison to when we put the new one on there. However, I am pressed for time with this car today, and I'm not supposed to be really diagnosing this. The guy brought his part and was like, "Hey, put this part on," and I'm just doing as requested. But this is just very basic, very basic. And I'm just kind of curious also to what this sensor's doing before I replace it, and we'll all get a visual look when I pull the sensor out and see if it does have some type of oil contamination that could potentially be causing this intermittent issue. But as for the moment, it works. You cut the car off, it reflects. When you cut it on, it pulls vacuum. So it's pretty much normal in comparison to a normal car. But if the oscilloscope here, can I pause this? I don't know how to work this Alltel very well. But Alltel, they have 1 second per division here, and this is very slow in comparison to how rapid electrical signals operate. So if you have like an issue, you're not going to see it unless it's like a legit fault. Like, not legit, but if it's broken per se. So if it's like straight up broke, yeah, you're going to see a fault more so than if it was like an intermittent fault. This is why oscilloscopes are like so important. So you can decrease the time base, so you can get a more enhanced look than 1 second per division. So, but let's get to pulling stuff off and inspect this map sensor and see what it looks like. Phone calls come in. Oh boy. Woo! This is like all convoluted and complicated and stuff, man, I swear. Alright. So we are somewhere where we need to be. There's the throttle body. There was some Torx bit, not Torx, but star bits here I took out of the inlet air box, the intake tube there. I had a pair of pliers. Get this joker off right there, like so. I was telling the lady, like, all money is good money. I would rather save my name and have somebody bring their own part and have no accountability if that vehicle is going to work or not. And you have to assume responsibility for that. Even though I'm putting the part on here that the guy purchased. I'm not perfect, but man, I tell you. Oh shit! Screwing up. Okay, here we have the how do you say, throttle body exposed, and the map sensor is going to be on the side where the electronics for the throttle body is, so it's going to be right behind here. So you have to take this throttle body out to access that one bolt that is like virtually impossible to get off. So what do I need to get this over with? Gonna be a T27 to get this throttle body off. Got no hand condoms on. I don't mind getting dirty today, obviously. Pull that connector out. Lay this off to the side. Here we have our map sensor. Gosh, I'm trying to put a light somewhere and I can't even do it because everything's made of freaking plastic on this car. Stupid. So here's a map sensor here. Is there a tab back here? Nope. Somebody already got back here. Tab is off of it. This slides right off. So somebody already replaced the map sensor. I'm gonna have to hope that grommet will hold it in place. I'm not gonna worry about testing the wire integrity because simple fact, it operates and it didn't show any signs of falling off when it took a snapshot. So it was probably detecting this like a loss of, I don't know, so it was out of specifications for a particular point in time. Let's see here. Oh, it's only one screw. Oh, I thought it was a screw that was over there on the side. I guess I was wrong. It's only one, but it's still, I mean, it still would have to come off anyway. The throttle body to be able to. hate these cars. I'm just curious to see if it honestly had any signs of oil in there. And yep, it is engulfed in the oil. So it does have a lot of oil on it. I wonder how it works. I'm no Volkswagen guy or anything, but I wonder if this doubles as a temperature sensor. I mean, there's a little bulb inside of there, and this is a 4-pin connector, so it could be a possibility it doubles as a map sensor and a temperature sensor, intake temp sensor, I guess. Just my conjecture. I didn't read the theory of operation. So what I'm gonna do, since I'm in here, just see if there's any oil down in there. Clean all that off if I can with a rag. Probably be a bad idea just to blow some brake cleaner in there to get that cleaned off. This car will be hard to start. Get everything back together. I mean, at least if I spray a little more fluid in there, it'll mix with that oil and dry up and suck. It'll at least it'll release it from the area surface. I'm gonna put that back in there. Get everything installed in reverse order. The connector looked fine, which is a good thing. There wasn't any discrepancies besides the pins were fine. Unfortunately, the connector itself was damaged and it's not staying in place. It doesn't look like it could stay tight. It doesn't have that locking clip. Since the clip was already broken off, but that shouldn't keep it from losing the connection. I mean, it had a grommet on there that served its purpose. Just put back in there. Plus the harness is like it's keeping it up, so it's not like it'll fall off or anything. It would be nice if the connector stayed more in place. I wonder if I can. This thing when it's off to the side here. Cool. I guess for the simple sake of presentation, I'll just take a rag with carburetor spray or brake spray and go around the throttle plate. So what's supposed to happen, I guess, is like the PCV system sits up here, so it sucks in the oil through here, and being that the map sensor is sitting in a poor spot down in the plenum, the oil can collect and obscure the readings. I guess that's what will cause that oil to collect, like we saw. The labor time on this is supposed to be just 1 hour for replacing this, so didn't take an hour. Alright, everything's back together, and it's going to be the first start up after the map sensor's been replaced, so it's going to be hard to start, but do a flood clear, press the accelerator pedal down to the floor, and hopefully they'll start up more immediate. Cool. It's a pretty big motor, so yeah, it ate that brake cleaner up like nothing. All right, let me get the let it idle for a second, clear the code, and look at the PID data. All right, so this is interesting. I have a P0106 coming back up, and if with the key off, engine off, key on, the intake manifold pressure sensor is reading now at 6.67. That's pretty interesting. I'm gonna mess around with this connector if I can get my hands down there and see if it changes. It's interesting. And it's supposed to be reading at 14 psi, and it ain't doing such. So that's weird. I'm gonna let it run. Maybe the brake cleaner just. I can't imagine it being on the head of the sensor causing this issue, but let me figure something out. So I took it around for a drive. I got about 7 miles out of it, and the range performance is still a thing. And if I recall, I'm not that crazy, but normal map sensors will display like this interpretation of PSI in regards to just normal atmospheric pressure. So 14 PSI with the key off, the key on, engine off should be 14. This one isn't doing anything. I mean, it's just constantly going up to 6 max, which is a little concerning because, I mean, it violates the code, it comes back immediately. You know, negative 25% as far as the after ratio or the fuel trim. That's understandable because I put a lot of brake cleaner in there to clean off the residual oil. However, it should not be. It shouldn't have an effect on the sensor. So I think he probably got a bad new sensor. Just my assumption here. So long term is stored at negative 28. So it's taking away 28% of fuel, which is still kind of normal. I mean, it was considered rich. It was running out pretty rich because of the brake cleaner. But I mean, after driving several miles, it should have sucked all that up and burnt it off. Let me go here. So let me turn the key off, back on, and it's just maxing out at 6.5 here. So let me go back. I mean, there's no check engine light on, but I mean, there's a permanent code here with the map sensor. And I know sometimes like the generic feature may not be able to clear it like a bidirectional feature can, and vice versa, because I had an issue like that with a Toyota. Let me go in the bidirectional portion and try to clear it out and see what happened. Right, so even in the bidirectional portion is still showing a fault code here. Yeah, that was my fault. I should have cut the car off. So I cleared it. It's past no fault currently. Key off, back on. We'll start it up. I should have cut the car off. I don't know why I did that. So I'm X out. Go back in. Have a code again, and it's the same code with the map sensor. Yep. Range performance. Intake manifold pressure. I just had to go to the conversion because I don't know exactly what millibar converts over to PSI, but when looking it up, like a Google converter, it is 6 PSI conversion. I'm not crazy, but on a typical vehicle, it's supposed to, at atmospheric pressure, be at 14 PSI. And I'm not going to make this car all complicated and drawn out, but this guy literally just probably got a bad sensor. I'm not sure what's the sensor that's supposed to go on here. The one I pulled off was a Bosch. This one obviously is not working. I'm just gonna have to let him know, and he's just gonna have to take other means of getting a repair, either get a new one or take another option. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I'm gonna let him know. I'll see what happens. Here it is. 4 days later, Volkswagen Passat came back. We got a new part, which is a intermotor. And if I recall, these are advanced auto parts. Yeah, he got it from Volkswagen, so, you know, that's why I'm not a big proponent of people saying, oh, well, you know, don't buy aftermarket parts, because some of these parts actually do cross over to factory standard products. So, you know, I'm indifferent to it, but I will say, I am not a big proponent of ordering stuff off Amazon. You know, at least Rock Auto have various qualities of products you can choose from. Amazon, eBay, this is like that reason why. This is the second or third time. This is the third time within a year, but second time within the month and a half or so. So that we've had bad products. Now, let me just go back over the PID data because I'm not sure where it left off. So I got it disconnected now. Normally, when you have a map sensor hooked up, atmospheric pressure is supposed to be at 14 psi, and of course it's not. It's at 17 right now because of I do have it disconnected. Really quick, just for a comparison, I'm gonna try to do this without having to take this throttle body off. I know it's. Let me plug this back in. Finally, goddamn boy. All right, so I got it plugged back in. Oh shit, I'm screwing up like, god damn it. All right, I got it plugged back in. I about made a mess of everything. So our PID data shows on the intake manifold pressure sensor, the map sensor, it's at 6.53 psi. And again, this is just a voltage interpretation of that's relative to pressure. So the it's supposed to be at 14 psi with the engine off, key on, and I am correct. This is affiliated with the. It's a two-piece sensor. It has a map sensor and it has a temperature sensor inside of it. So the intake temp sensor is that. I'm gonna disconnect it and install the new one. So I'm not going to completely install it, but I just want to show you the difference in information. So here's our new one. Now look at our data. 14, I thought the light was going to fall again. 14 psi, and then we have even better temperature. So not just one part is bad, the map sensor, but also the intake air temperature. That's crazy. And this, so the part that he purchased was the eBay part. He said if he gave him a bad review, they'll refund his money. So he gave him a bad review. I can't remember where he got the part. I think it's in the other video when I edit it. I'll try to put that in there. But you know, things happen. You know, if this is why it's important to get somebody that that knows what they're doing to diagnose the car thoroughly, because even then, I mean, that's just one thing. It's still good to get the person that's repairing the car to diagnose, to install the part, because if something go wrong, they have the accountability. You know, they can go back over it, analyze things of since they diagnosed it and determined that part was bad, and replace it. You know, so I don't want to go back over and repeat certain things that were said in the original video. I think I'm gonna have to because it was 4 days ago. But you know, this obviously could have been contributed to an oil problem, that the oil will get down to the intake there and collect and obstruct the readings. So like I said, I clean it off. I'm gonna take it off and inspect it and see what it look like after 4 days. Other than that, I mean, if he would have got the part from me, I would have been able to get the part immediately more sooner than him having to go back and buy another part from somewhere else. You know, it would have been a lot more simplistic. And even then, you know, he got it from Volkswagen, and this is a, if I recall, it's an advanced store part. I know it's not an O'Reilly's part because we have standard products. So, and it was BWD at one point, but other than that, man, you know, the whole point of this, we put in bad new parts, and it happened, and it's even, the odds are even higher buying it off the internet. I'm not sure what was the internals consisting of, what happened when it was designed, but unfortunately, structurally, they look the same, but electrically, they're totally incompatible. So, you know, things happen. But I'm gonna get this installed. We looked at the PID data. Oh, you know what? Let me do this. Let me clear the code, because the check-in light would immediately come back on with the old sensor in there. So we're in the bidirectional portion now. Now, when I went through the generic portion, it wouldn't clear the code, but in the bidirectional portion, there's no fault code stored. So it did clear it. Sometimes it's not going to reflect, but I'm going to do just a complete clear, just in case it's stored in the other module. So sometimes you have to go into other portions to clear the code. I remember I had a car that I went into the bidirectional portion to clear, and it wouldn't clear until I got to the generic feature. So it's strange. I don't understand that. But there's no fault code stored currently. The ignition switch is on. Let's go to live data. We're going to go to advanced measure value, because if you go to the other one, you're going to have to put a special code in. So here's our intake manifold pressure, and it's going to be read in millibar. So we're going to take a look at that. I don't even know the conversion. Stupid Americans. So what I'm going to do, because I don't have to convert it, I'm going to go back out to the portion that I understand, which is going to be the generic feature, so it can do some simple conversions for me, because I can relate to atmospheric pressure better than I can millibar. In the car right now, and here's our interpretation of the intake manifold pressure sensor at idle. So it's producing 4.6 psi at idle. So it would technically be converted to inch vacuum if we were to do other conversion factors. But this is the interpretation here. Here's our air temperature sensor working. I'm just going to do a snap throttle. Before, the other one would only go up to 6 volts. This one should go to atmospheric pressure, which is 14, because this is non-boosted. And honestly, maybe because I haven't seen the other one in a while, but this one seems to have a more rapid reflection than the other one. You know, maybe because it had oil contaminants on the head of the sensor. So hey, this car's fixed. It's working. Learned a few, the lesson that we learned reinforced what everyone talks about as far as quality parts online versus aftermarket versus factory. So I am against buying things on eBay, but I understand eBay is cheaper, but cheap quality comes cheap work, and it costs you more in time. You've seen the work triangle, right? So we'll see if this car stays up the test of time, see if it comes back. But pretty interesting. Too bad it took like 4 days to do this video. I was ready, eager to get this car back so I can go back over it. So, and here it is. But hey, if you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that link, subscribe to the channel. Stay informed and have the reassurance on work. I'll see you on the next one.